Good morning. Today, I think we're going to wrap up forgiveness. We've done 6 videos, I believe, on it, and I think that this was going to be our last one. There's a lot of other stuff that I know God wants to say, and so we're just probably going to wrap this one up today. So our last one on forgiveness is about how we forgive ourselves, and this one is close to my heart. And so let's dig in to how we forgive ourselves. So we're going to be in Psalms and Isaiah to begin. Um, sometimes it's easy for us to forgive other people, but sometimes it is not so easy for us to forgive ourselves. And we put that on us because we feel our bodies, our spirits actually just hate our sin. And the reason that is because our spirit obviously came from God. And so when we sin, when we do things that we're not supposed to do, it causes us to hate that, or to hate ourselves, or not like ourselves. And so that's where it's really important. There we go. That's where it's really important to make sure that we're not holding on to that. Um, and so we're going to be in Psalm 38. I have been transferring all of my scripture notes and my journaling over to my new Bible, and I am only in Isaiah. It's going to take a minute, but that's okay. It's a good refresher to pull all of this scripture up and to see my notes and to see what I've talked about and where that comes from. Um, so we're going to look at Psalm 38:18, and it says, "I confess my iniquity. I am sorry for my sin." Sometimes we do things and we think nobody's going to know. It was done in that secret place. It was done away from everybody. Nobody's going to see that. Nobody's going to know that I did that. Nobody's going to know that I thought that. Nobody's going to know that that's in my heart. Nobody's going to know how I really feel. God does. Nobody else needs to know. It's God's business, and God knows where you're at. He knows where you're at in your walk. He knows what you're struggling with. He knows where you've sinned at. He knows everything. And sometimes we try to run away from God, and we try to say, well, if nobody's around me, then there's nobody to say that that's what I did. But we feel it in ourselves. And so I love this Psalms 38:18 where it says, "I confess my iniquity." So I'm confessing my sin, and I'm so sorry for my sin. I'm so sorry for when I've wronged God. And as a believer and somebody who walks with God and follows God, you need to be sorry for that. That should be hitting you differently. It should be disturbing your spirit. Let's turn back a couple chapters to Psalms 32. And this is going to be 32:5. And 32:5 says, "Then I acknowledged my sin to you, and I did not hide my iniquity. I said, I will confess my transgressions to the Lord, and you forgave the guilt of my sin." So it's not just the sin that he's forgiving. He's forgiving you feeling guilty. And you're like, well, why is that a sin? Why me feeling guilty? Why is that a sin? Because God's already forgiven you. Who are you that you're more powerful or more upright or more righteous than him, that you can't forgive someone, or that you can't forgive yourself? Because he's already done it. And if the creator of the world has already forgiven you, what else is there? And I know that sounds easy coming out of my mouth, but that may not be easy to somebody who struggles with depression or emotional damage or anxiety, or some of us, we have racing thoughts like, this is hard, this is not a, oh, I'm just going to quote this scripture and I'm going to bebop along in my life. That's just not how it is. And so you have to be ready for those attacks, and you have to know that there's going to be a struggle, and that's okay. It's okay if there's a struggle. It's okay if you don't get it on your first try. That's why we're here, and that's why we're supposed to walk in community with each other, is so that we can offer that grace and we can offer that love when we screw up, or when somebody screws up over and over and over again, because we are human and there's something that all of us struggle with, and none of us are perfect. We'll never be perfect until God comes back. And so it's being able to say, this is where my struggle is, and let me share that with other people. Let me share the hope with other people. Let me share the joy with other people. It's so important. We don't do that enough. We don't share where we've fallen enough with each other. We share all the good stuff, but when we're struggling, when we're fighting, when we're upset, when we're angry, when we've sinned, when we've done all these things, we're not walking in community with each other, because we think, oh, well, if I tell so-and-so this, then they're never going to want to be my friend again. If somebody walks away from you because you have gone and asked for forgiveness and are trying to change your life, and they walk away, let them go. Let them go. They didn't need to be a part of your journey anyway. Because people are going to surround you that love you and care about you and that are for you and will fight for you. I will fight hands down for any of my friends. Everybody that I know. If you know me, you are my family, period. There's no, oh, you're in the friend zone, or, oh, blood is family. No, no, no. If I met you and you're in my circle and we break bread together, are my family. And I will fight, and I will fight, and I will fight for my family. And I will find you in the darkness, and I will find you at your lowest. And I will do my best to encourage and uplift and love you. But that's how it should be with everybody. When you have sinned against someone and you go to that person, you ask them for forgiveness, it should be met with love and with gratitude and with uplifting and encouraging words. But so often we don't do that, especially not to ourselves. We don't give ourselves that much grace. I have a cat, just so y'all know what I'm looking at, and she's rubbing her face up against the side of my Bible, and it is distracting me. Oh, stop. Anyway, you're in it too. So let's go look. Let's bounce ahead a couple chapters. It's still in Psalms, but let's go to Psalm 51. Psalm 51, verse 7. Purge me with hyssop, and I shall be clean. Wash me, and I shall be whiter than snow. It's beautiful. That's the forgiveness that we get from God. When He does that to us, we're washed clean. It's gone. We don't have to worry about it anymore. Another good one. Let's continue in this. So this was verse 7. Let's continue through verse 12. Verse 8, let me hear joy and gladness. Let the bones that you have crushed rejoice. Hide your face from my sins and blot out all my iniquities. Write this on your mirror. Create in me a clean heart, O God, and put a new and right spirit within me. Do not cast me away from your presence, and do not take your Holy Spirit from me. Y'all, I just looked down. I don't know if y'all can see him, but he has pulled the tub drain out of the tub and he's playing with it on the floor. My cats are something else. Anyway, the verse 10 is what you should write on your mirror, and you should read that every day. Put it on your mirror in your bathroom. Write it with a dry erase marker so you can wipe it off. But create in me a clean heart, O God, and put a new and right spirit within me. I promise you, if you start praying that verse every day, God will do it, and he will reveal things to you that you did not know you were struggling with. Let me encourage you here. When you find out what you've been harboring in your heart that is not clean, do not become ashamed. Do not become ashamed. Listen to that. Let that sit for a minute. This process is not for you to be shamed. This process that God allows when he creates that clean heart, when he pulls that sin out of us, he's pulling it out because we need to see it for what it is, because you can't change if you don't see it. And he's going to pull it out, and he may reveal something to you that you're like, holy crap, that is so ugly. Why do I do that? That's so ugly. I don't want to be that person. I don't want anybody else to see that. This is why it's important. 1, for you to let others see it, but 2, to not have that shame. Count it all joy, my brothers, when you face various trials. Does that verse ring a bell? It's in James, in the New Testament. And I'm going to pull it up. I don't know it verbatim. I should, and I don't. James 1 verse 2. My brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of any kind, consider it nothing but joy, because you know that the testing of your faith produces endurance, and let endurance have its full effect, so that you may be mature and complete, lacking in nothing. How do we share our testimonies? How do we allow other people to know it's okay? It's okay that you sinned, and it's okay that you screwed up, and it's okay because we're here. We're here to forgive that. When you go to God and you ask for forgiveness, you have to go with the correct spirit. You have to go with the right heart. It can't be, oh man, God, I'm scared I'm going to get caught. Forgive me for this so I don't get caught. That's not what it should be. It should be, God, I did something wrong. And I should have never done that, God, and I'm so sorry. And I don't want to do it again. I don't want to do it again. I don't want to do it again. I don't want it to tempt me. I don't want it to be around me. I don't want to do it again. Let him remove that from you. But when he removes it, leave it. Don't pick it up. Don't. I'm busy. Don't leave it alone. Or I'm sorry, please leave it alone. Don't pick it back up. Wait, you're distracting me. Stop it. God already removed it. We talked about last time about how he moves it as far as the east is from the west. Why are you picking it back up? Why is this something that you need to pick back up when the creator of the universe, the God of the world, the one who created you and formed you in your mother's womb, has forgiven you? Why are we bringing it up? And it's okay. Now here goes the other one. And that's okay to bring it up. And it's okay to say, hey, I'm struggling with this. Struggle with it and get that godly advice and move forward. And next week, when you're struggling with it again, go back and get more godly advice. Don't walk this road alone. This is not, you weren't made to do this by yourself. You were made to live in community. You were made to commune with God. Let Him forgive that so that you can walk in everything that He has for you. Don't miss out on something because you're still caught up in the shame of the sin that you committed. And we've all been there. We've all done things that we shouldn't have done. We've all sinned. We've all fallen short of the glory of God. And that's why Christ is our example. And that's why we should look to Him and look at what He did and look at the things that He did. Because that's the life that we should mirror. That's the life that we should live. And unfortunately, we get caught up as people saying, well, the world is more important. Putting all my energy into sports is more important. Putting all my energy into alcohol is more important. Putting all my energy into shopping is more important. Putting all my energy into gossiping is more important. Putting all my energy into stealing is important. Putting all of my energy into murdering is important. Do you know that every single one of those sins, every single one of those things that you make an idol in your life, God looks at exactly the same. Whether you told this little white lie or whether you went and did a mass killing. For our human minds, we can't fathom that. We're like, oh, it's just a little white lie. It's not a big deal. Oh, they murdered a bunch of people. That's a really big deal. It's not to God. It's the same. Sin is a sin is a sin is a sin. What's the saying? Call a spade a spade. Be okay with that. Rejoice. Have joy. Look, I'm human and I sinned. And let me go share that with other people so that they can heal from their damage. One of the greatest things that I ever did was to share my testimony with others. About 9 years ago or so, I went on a retreat and God met me there. And I thought that I was living faithfully before that, but it wasn't until that moment with God that I knew. And so I'm just going to share a little bit of that testimony with you. I had 3 children by a man who was not very nice to me. And we're just going to leave it at that. He struggled with his own mental illness, and it was very sad, and it was very damaging. And there came a point when I had to get out, and I got scared, and I didn't know what to do, and I didn't know how to do things. And I was in this whirlwind of still being controlled by a parent and them telling me that I was worth nothing and that I would never be able to make anything of myself, and I was a horrible mom, and I needed to marry the man who was abusing me and things like that. And it was a very, very hard time for me. And when I left, I felt like I couldn't do it. I felt like I was suffocating. I felt like I didn't have anybody. And I was so young. And I did the only thing that I knew to do to protect my children, and I gave guardianship of my children, my 3 children, to my adopted parents. And I knew that he wouldn't come after them. I knew that he would go away once that happened, because there was nothing he could hurt me with. And there's so many details to that situation that would just make your skin crawl. But that's not the point. The point is the restoration that God brought. So that happened, and I didn't tell anybody because I felt shame. I wasn't looking at it like I did what was best for my children. I was looking at it like I'm a horrible mother because that's what I had been told by somebody who I thought loved me. And I had all these doubts swimming around, and I was far from God. And what I really needed was somebody to come alongside me and say, hey, you're okay. You're okay. It's okay. You're okay. God knows. And He sees it. And He sees you. And you're okay. But I didn't have that. And so I went into a depression for the next 12 years. A very deep and dark depression. Got pregnant with, and Anthony was born. And I pushed myself away from him, and I separated myself because all my kids look exactly alike and they all look like me, and I couldn't deal with it. I couldn't handle it. The enemy was shrouding me with shame. And I didn't tell anybody about my other kids because I felt all this shame. And when I went to this retreat, I get there and they tell me nobody can talk. And my husband had been right before I went, but he didn't tell me anything about it. He just said it was really good and that was it, because they're told to do that. And there's reasons. There's lots of surprises and things that go on, and so it's a really beautiful experience. And this was I'm trying to look at my phone. Excuse you. And so I went, and the first night they tell everybody that we couldn't talk, and I'm like, "Have you met me?" And it was really hard for me, but I was like, okay. So I went and I took my Bible and I went outside. It was dark. It was nighttime. It was beautiful grounds. And I went and I sat under this big, huge tree. And I never opened up my Bible, but I just sat there with it. And I said, God, I don't know what you're doing in my life. And I don't know why you have me here. But I need you to make this weekend just about me and you. I don't want to hear anybody else. I don't want to do for anybody else. Like, this is about me, and I need this time with you, and I really need you to do a work in me because I don't know why you have me here. Be careful what you ask for. That night, God awakened in me something that over the next few days grew so much. I couldn't tell you what anybody else at my table talked about. I know we had a ball, but I couldn't tell you what we did. But I can tell you what God did in me. There was a lot of healing, and there was a lot of speaking to my heart. And part of that was there was a praise and worship song that was introduced to me that weekend. And it was called Not for a Moment. And it talks about how not for a moment did you forsake me. Not for a moment were you not there loving me and holding me, even when it was bad and even when it was hard and even through my shame. It was a beautiful time with God. And there's a part in there where you have to surrender things that you're holding on to back to God. And for me, it was my children. And I couldn't put their names on paper. The shame was still so thick in me. And I think I sat there for what felt like forever. And in reality, it was probably only like 20 minutes or so, but it felt like eternity. And I physically could not get my hand to write their names down. And I begged God to take that shame. And I begged Him to take that away from me and to take it away so that I didn't feel it anymore. Because I knew I knew that God needed to use this. And that's the interesting part about shame and sin, is we think that God can't use it, but that's where he grows. That's where he grows you. And I thought, he's never going to be able to use this sin, ever. And I finally was able to write their names on this paper, and I was able to surrender that. And right after I did, I completely broke. And I went outside, and everybody's in the chapel, and I went outside, and one of my table leaders at the time came to me, and she sat outside with me, and she said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "I just need a minute. I just need a minute. Something's changing in me, and I just need a minute." And I could feel it. And I sat there with her, and through a lot of tears and a lot of sobbing, and she didn't even know. And that's the beauty of community, and that's the beauty of walking together, is she didn't know, and she didn't need to know. She didn't need to know. She just needed to know that I was hurting and that I was sad.
Hey there, how are you doing?
And you're okay, it's just groceries. And so she just sat there and she cried with me. And she still didn't know. We sat out there for probably like 10 minutes before I even opened up my mouth. And we just cried together. And that's what I needed. I needed somebody that could just sit with me. And that's what she did. And then it started pouring out of my mouth. Anthony's not my only child. I have 3 other children, and this is what happened, and this is what went down, and this is why I did what I did. And I mean, I just word vomited all over her. And I'm crying, and she's crying, and she looks at me and she says, "Thank you for sharing." She said, "I've carried some shame because I let my ex-husband have custody of my boys. And I don't get to see them all the time, and I don't get to be with them all the time. And as a mom, I feel shame, like I made the wrong decision. I never would have known that had I not shared my testimony." And after that, it was everybody I saw, I told, as people were walking out of the chapel, and I'm sharing this testimony with them, and I'm telling them about my beautiful children and how much I love them and have missed them, and all these things, and the grace and the love, and the other women that had similar stories that had never been told were coming out. It was more than just myself that was healed that weekend. It was a lot of women who carried a lot of shame from motherhood. And it was a beautiful time, that even though I had carried all that sin and shame for so long, to see how God was using that to bring people closer to Him was the most beautiful thing that I had ever experienced. And we went on through the weekend, and there was little pieces of God's grace in every moment. And a couple of nights before we were in the thick of this, and I think it was, I want to say it was, I can't remember what night it was, but anyway, we met together, and we did a prayer walk, and we sang, and we glorified God, and we went into the chapel, and we were all singing together. And as we're walking into the chapel's already full, and we didn't know what was happening. We thought, oh, these people are having a church service and we're just coming in. And they lead you down the aisle, and they lead you up to the stage and onto these bleachers. And I looked down, I look down at the crowd, and there's my husband standing in the front row, hands raised, praising God for what he had done in his life a couple weekends before, but also what he was doing in my life. And it was the most beautiful thing that I had ever experienced. And it is what jump-started my walk again with God. And I tell you that because forgiveness was such a huge part of that. It was a huge thing for me to say, I need to be forgiven. I need this. This is what I need. But had I not forgiven myself, had I not walked through that, had I not experienced what I did, I wouldn't have been able to help the women that I've helped. We go through our life and we go through these experiences and we think nobody can ever know. Nobody can ever know that part. Nobody can ever hear that secret. Nobody can ever know of that lie. And we put these pressures on ourselves because that's where the enemy wants to keep us. He wants to keep us there. Because if he keeps us in shame and if he keeps us in unforgiveness, we don't get to grow into this beautiful person that God has meant for us to be. Psalm 32:7, you are a hiding place for me. You preserve me from trouble. You surround me with glad cries of deliverance. When we bring that God, I'm sorry. God, forgive me. God, take my iniquity away. Please forgive me for my sin. I am shamed and I am broken. He surrounds me with glad cries of deliverance. When he is delivering us from that, and we have that deliverance because we've been forgiven and we've changed our ways. It's not just about asking forgiveness for the sin. It's about correcting the behavior. You're going to continually ask for forgiveness. If you're continually doing this sin, you have to stop doing it. And he rejoices around you with glad cries of deliverance. I don't know if I know some of you haven't, probably some of you haven't ever been in a church where you're having a worship night or a praise night and everybody's just got their hands raised and the music stops and it's just the voices of the people singing out to God. That's what I imagine when it says he surrounds us with a loud cry of deliverance. I imagine his angels and people that have gone before us raising their hands and praising God for the deliverance that he has given you. Don't pass that up. You are so deserving and you are so loved. And it is so important. And let me tell you something. If you are walking with someone and they are sinning over and over again, and you are continually having to have this conversation with them, do not get weary. Do not get weary. You give them grace upon grace upon grace, because that's what God gives us. Help them learn, help them grow, love them, but be there. It's important to be there. Isaiah 55:6-7, and we're going to close with that. This went in a different direction than I thought, and that's okay. God likes to do his own thing on these, and that's why I love doing these, because we get to see what he has for us and not what I have for us. In Isaiah 55:6-7, it says, seek the Lord while he may be found. Call upon him while he is near. Let the wicked forsake their way, and the unrighteous their thoughts. Let them return to the Lord, that they may have mercy on them, and to our God, for he will abundantly pardon. Abundantly. 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 What does abundantly mean? I know what it means, but I love looking words like this up because there's something that happens when we learn the translation. And when we learn the translation, and I do it in Bible studies and I've seen it done other places, it just hits differently. So let's read that. It says, and to our God, for he will abundantly pardon. Abundantly. It means large quantities, plentiful, ample, extremely, exceedingly. My God will give you large amounts of forgiveness, is what that's saying. Large amounts. How hard is it for us to forgive somebody when they wrong us? It's hard. Forgiveness is hard, but it's necessary. It's necessary for us. It's necessary for you. It's necessary for them. It's necessary. It's just necessary. But don't ever live in that shame. I can sit here all day long and I can compare stories with the best of them of things that I've done in my life that I should not have done and that I could absolutely sit in shame about. But I don't sit in that shame anymore. I tell people, yeah, this is who I used to be. Yeah, I'm not proud of that. Yeah, I did this over here. Sure did. Yep. Yep. That's what I did. But God. It's all you need at the end. But God. God pulled me out of that shame. He pulled me out of that and he brought me new so that I could be here today to share that with you. If you're hurting, if there's something that's not going right, if you need forgiveness and you don't know how to walk through it, reach out. Reach out and let me walk with you. It would be an honor to walk with you through your valley and see you get up on that hill, because that's where we all want to be. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will put my Cash App in the description in case you would like to give to the ministry. Y'all have a great day.